morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. And I'm going to talk with you a little bit today about how women got off the edge of tomorrow and actually came into Rotary. We're talking about a tomorrow when we will see polio eradicated from the world. You know, it's only in two places now, Pakistan, where they're having some problems, and Afghanistan, where they're having bigger problems. However, there will be a day when polio will be eradicated, just as the coronavirus will. So, more than 35 years ago, women tried to become members of Rotary so they could do the good work that's being done. Well, wasn't as easy as all of that. I went to work in a school district in Duarte. That's a little town near Pasadena, you know, where the Rose Parade comes from most New Year's days. And I was interested in the kind of community that there was. So I made an appointment to talk with my superintendent to find out what kind of community support there was. And he said to me, "You don't need to worry about this because we have a Rotary Club here. And Rotary takes care of everything." Well, you know, I had never heard of Rotary. What I knew about Rotary then could have been loosely written on the head of a pin. I knew about Kiwanis, you know, I knew Kiwanis means waiting to get into Rotary. Well, that's a joke from Kiwanis. However, the problem with uh, Rotary was that there were no women in Rotary. And Dr. Key said, "Hey, we need these principals here to be Rotarians. They're all manager types." And that's what Rotary had at the time, manager types. Well, he went to the district governor. The governor said, "You go right ahead and invite them. When you register them with international, just make sure you don't use their first names, just use initials. So if you say S. Whitlock, you know, that could be Stephen Whitlock, or M. Elliott, that could be Michael Elliott, but we won't use the full name." Well, that's what dictated, and he registered us duly as Rotarians. And things went along swimmingly, we thought, until we had our 25th anniversary party. And of course, Rotary sends representatives to help club celebrate. And the representatives came to Doherty, and of course, they were introduced to the Rotarians in the club, and they were astounded. They said, "We don't have women in Rotary." And somebody said, "This club does." Well, they stayed until the end of the party, and they went back. And almost by return mail came the notice telling us three things. Women are not allowed in Rotary. Number two, the women need to be asked to leave. Number three, if they don't leave, the club has to stop calling itself a Rotary Club. Well, the club took a vote and decided it wouldn't ask the women to leave, but it would ask to appeal to the board of directors. But it was told it couldn't appeal to the board of directors because it wasn't a real Rotary Club, and only real Rotary clubs could address the board of directors. Well, it decided it would appeal to the Council on Legislation, which was meeting that year in Tokyo. So a member was chosen to take the issue to Tokyo. But it was an interesting situation because when the issue was presented, it wasn't whether women should be permitted to be members, but it was whether the Doherty Club had violated Rotary bylaws by inviting the women to be members. And of course, the answer was clear. The vote against having the club retain its women was 1,000 to 34. Hey, I met one of those 34 delegates the year that the convention was in Calgary. I was on a train riding into the convention center, and I was sitting across from a gentleman and his wife who were, you know, tagged, Rotary tags, and we were reading each other's tags. And the gentleman said, "Duarte, isn't that the club that invited women into Rotary?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You know, I was at the Council of Legislation and I voted to have women in Rotary. I didn't care what the issue was. I voted to have women in Rotary because I always thought they should be there. And his wife was sitting quiet next to him, said, I didn't think so then, and I don't think so now. And I thought, why? And she said, because we have men going out to meetings at night and we don't want them going to meetings with women and all of that. And I said, you know what? It's not a service, it's not a social club. It's a service club. But she didn't want to have her mind changed. It was made up, but there were a lot of people who felt that way, a lot of women who felt that way. I'll tell you a little bit of information, little known bit of information. In the 1950s in Detroit, a club in India, had put an item on the agenda about women. They wanted to change the bylaws, but it was defeated and the club didn't press it. They just went away. But even more interesting, the first Rotary Constitution didn't specify that Rotarians had to be men. It just said persons of good character. But that was a time when there were few women in the workaday world. And because men were the ones engaging in fellowship and business activities, the bylaws just evolved into men of good character. So here we were. We can't call ourselves a Rotary Club. Bill Brooks, one of our members, said, that's okay. We'll just call ourselves the ex-Rotary Club of Dwardy. See our pin? That next to it is the mouse. We'll tell you about the mouse later. We'll just call ourselves the ex-Rotary Club of Dwardy, and we'll continue to meet and we continue to do community stuff. There's no Rotary Club there anymore. So we picked up all the community stuff. And an attorney, a Rotarian attorney from a neighboring club said, you know what, I bet we can take this to court. So as we prepared to take it to California courts, we gave Rotary notice. And of course, Rotary said, we don't want it heard in California. We want it heard in federal court because all members of the board of directors are not California. But you see, there had been a precedent in federal court where a New York club had been seeking exclusionary rights for private club membership. The federal court had ruled favorably in their case. And so they wanted to piggyback on that precedent. But the federal court ruled that the case should be heard in a California court. So it was first heard by the California Superior Court, which upheld Rotary's right to expel the club. And so Dwardy appealed. But you have to remember, when we were dealing with this issue of women in Rotary, we were looking at this as a membership issue. The larger world looked at it, rightly so, as a civil rights issue. And so Dwardy appealed. And of course, they were helped by the ACLU, who recognized the civil rights legislation involved in this. And of course, the Seattle Five, another club that had been trying to get women into Rotary. And so Sanford Smith thought, well, okay, so this is what we'll do. This is what we'll do. There is a law in California called the Unruh Act that bans discrimination in public accommodation. And Rotary was deemed to be a public accommodation because of its classification system and the fact that 80% of its members have their dues paid by their employers. And so we're going to use Rotary as a public accommodation. And on that basis, he appealed to the California Appellate Court, and the club saw that the Superior Court's ruling was reversed by the California Appellate Court. But Rotary wasn't sitting still on this. Rotary had discarded the thought, service above self. And they were interested in self above service then at the time, and no woman included in those cells. So they immediately appealed to the California Supreme Court. But that Supreme Court refused to hear the case, essentially affirming the decision of the appellate court. But now this decision was incumbent on all California Rotary clubs, but only California. And so we moved on. And of course, things had changed slowly. That's the year I was coming in as our president-elect. And so I was sent the same invitation sent to the other people. I got the postcard telling me where pets would be held and advising me to bring my coat and tie because directory pictures would be taken. So, at that meeting in my coat and tie, I was the only woman there with 290 men. But the nicest thing about that proportion was that when it was during restroom breaks, oops, long lines outside the men's restroom. And I could kind of just sashay past. This was 30 years ago, and I could sashay. There wasn't even one female speaker, but most of the men were cordial and friendly. And at the section on Rotary International, I heard our incoming governor discuss the case and tell us that Rotary International will appeal to the United States Supreme Court. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He said it's just the case of the mouse that roared. So, I went back to Duarte. We made new banners, Rotary, ex-Rotary Club of Duarte, the mouse that roared. And of course, we have a mouse pin. And they did appeal to the United States Supreme Court. And the court did take the case. RI's argument was that the ruling violated their First Amendment right of association. But on May the 4th, 1987, the court found that considering the size, purpose, selectivity, and exclusivity of Rotary's membership, the relationship among the club's members was not of the intimate or private variety which warranted First Amendment protection. So Justice Powell argued, he was writing for the unanimous court. Sandra Day O'Connor didn't vote because her husband was a Rotarian. Justice Powell argued that many of Rotary's activities, including their meetings, are conducted in the presence of strangers. And because women members would not prevent the club from carrying out its purposes, there was no violation of association rights. Furthermore, he said, big furthermore, even if there were a slight encroachment on the rights of Rotarians to associate, that minimal infringement would be justified since it serves the state's compelling interest in ending sexual discrimination. There it was. And the decision was now incumbent on all USA clubs. And there was a lot that went on right after that. But the important thing that went on right after that is that 2 years later, following an impassioned speech by Frank Devlin, the Council on Legislation voted to accept women members into Rotary. Now, maybe 27% of the members in the world are women, and maybe 32% or more in the USA are women. And that was the beginning of my journey. The opportunity to serve in an ever-shrinking world, the opportunity to meet men and women who can see and articulate a need and its solution, no matter how difficult the way or how meager the resources. Past President Matriarch said, women serve alongside men in every segment of life, in education, in medicine, in warehouses, and in construction. Why not in Rotary? And that's the story, and I'll tell you the rest of it sometime when you have time. Thank you very much.